I got to a point in life where, I was doing what I needed to do. I went to college, I would travel the world. I had this great corporate job. Everything on the outside looked so amazing. I was crossing the T's and dotting the I's. And there was just something inside of me that felt empty, that felt unseen, unheard, unwitnessed, unloved. And no matter what I did, no matter what vice I took on in order to cover up that love, in order to fill that void, it just was never enough. And I would go deeper and deeper and deeper into my void. And around 2010, I had a really interesting experience at the job that I was at the time. And I started finding out that there was a money trail that not many people knew about. And I started kind of recognizing information that I should not have known. And there was a witch hunt for the witch.
All right. Today we welcome Melissa Faith Ramirez to the Infinite Wisdom Interview Series. Melissa has, I'm going to tell you, she has an extraordinary story of a woman's journey. So she calls herself a recovering Catholic, which I'm going to ask a lot of questions about when we get into this because I'm so curious. She was raised in New York City and in a very, she says, a Colombian family. And she felt torn most of her adult life, not understanding who she was and less who she truly wanted to be. She's a dancer, she's an athlete, a beauty pageant queen, great with kids, a nonprofit educator, corporate America player, an adventurer who loved to travel the world. She says life was great on the outside. However, feeling inside a constant turmoil, panic attacks, fear of impending doom, feelings of psychosis. Perhaps I should admit myself, she says. And these feelings would come on over and over again. She felt alone, not understanding what was going on and feeling like she was losing her mind. She escaped with vices, living a double life, because she wanted to keep her secrets safe until she began to wake up. And then she studied plant medicine, extreme detoxing, neuro-linguistic programming, hypnotherapy, energy healing, all types of modalities, past life regression. She just went all out looking for answers. And once she cleared her energetic space, she was then able to adapt and adopt healthier habits and shift her mindset and understand what it was that she desired. And that's why she's here today, because she's going to tell us what she found out. Melissa, welcome. We are so happy to have you.
Thank you, my loves. I'm so happy to be here with you.
Oh, that's
Thank
fantastic.
you.
Fantastic. Okay, so we're just going to jump right into this. I want to know what a recovering Catholic is.
Hey, before we jump into that, Melissa, good to see you again, by the way. I just want to let everybody know, as you're coming in and listening in, if you guys have any questions as we go through this, go ahead and drop them in the comments, as well as we get going. Let's do the normal. Let us know where you're tuning in from, so we can kind of brag to Melissa or global reach. Right. Let us know in the comments where you're, so city and country, and let's keep it active and keep her busy with questions rolling in. All right.
Thank you. So a recovering Catholic. That's a great way to start, gentlemen. I love it. So I was that kid at 8 years old in the church pew at the mass, and something was off. I could feel something in my body was off. I was being lectured on keeping my legs crossed and being a good Catholic girl. And the priest hugged me inappropriately and smelled like liquor. So right there, I started kind of recognizing things were not as they seemed to be. I was raised in a home that was very loving, but very typical to not talk about your stuff, right? Very typical to have emotional outbursts and kind of just sweep it under the rug and keep it moving, right? Because we have to keep moving with life. And as a very sensitive child, I felt everything all the time, emotion, energy. I would feel things that other people were not even able to identify within themselves that they were feeling. So I was really torn most of my life growing up. I really felt like I had to live a double life because the things I was experiencing as a child, I was seeing ghosts and I was hearing voices, right? Which at the time I didn't understand, but was labeled as brujeria, which in Spanish is witchcraft, right? So there was another double life type of experience I had to have that I had to keep all of this secret, right? And it turned into madness, right? It turned into madness because it's labeled in society as being crazy. Everything I was experiencing, you know, the voices I was hearing, I got to a point in life where, you know, I was doing what I needed to do. I went to college, you know, I would travel the world. I had this great corporate job. Everything on the outside looked so amazing. I was crossing the T's and dotting the I's. And there was just something inside of me that felt empty, that felt unseen, unheard, unwitnessed, unloved. And no matter what I did, no matter what vice I took on in order to cover up that love, in order to fill that void, it just was never enough. And I would go deeper and deeper and deeper into my void. And around 2010, I had a really interesting experience at the job that I was at the time. And I started finding out that there was a money trail that not many people knew about. And I started kind of recognizing information that I should not have known. And there was a witch hunt for the witch to get her out of that organization. And again, I was unaware at the time, right? Because I just was in my understanding of being labeled as being crazy, being strange for everything I was experiencing that I was covering up. So I went into what we call the dark night of the soul. I think this is an audience that understands that conversation. Yeah. And the dark night of the soul was dark. And it was psychosis, and it was suicide, and it was depression, and it was anxiety, and it was a plethora of emotions and feelings that would really bring you to admit yourself into an institution. And I was at one point, I was standing in front of an institution in Queens, New York, and really considering admitting myself because I had nowhere else to go, right? Because I was having these really erratic dreams. I was having these very erratic moods. 1 minute I wanted to live, the next minute I wanted to leave this planet. And I was in front of the insane asylum, and something nudged me to not go in that direction. But I ended up going to a psychiatrist anyways to get looked at. And as I was there getting diagnosed, there was an interesting interaction with psychiatrists. It was kind of like the psychiatrist, we were kind of speaking telepathically in a way, it felt. And he was knocking off, right, the boxes, and he labeled me dissociative personality disorder, schizophrenia, like some pretty hardcore stuff. And when he gave me the little piece of paper with the prescription medication, I touched the paper and I projectile vomited on the psychiatrist. And that was my body. Wow. That was my body saying, absolutely not. This is not the path we need to go.
Yeah.
So that for me was a really clear sign that I can't logically understand what's taking place because my mind was so conditioned to understand that this is crazy. This is not normal. This is weird. You need to be put away for something like this, right? You need to take medication so you can keep it moving, right? But my body reacted, and I finally surrendered, and I started listening, and I really got into deep meditation. I went up to the Catskills for weeks at a time to just sit in the forest and listen and sit in my silence. And I started really going deep into my journey of seeing what this was, not what society was labeling it to be. And several years later, in one night, I woke up at 3 o'clock in the morning. It was very common for me to wake up at 3 o'clock in the morning at that time. And I really believe when we wake up between the hours of 3 and 5, we're being woken up to really listen closely to the divine. Right? It's a moment of peace where things can become more clear. And I heard, go to Hawaii. It was this really soft, beautiful voice that said, go to Hawaii, just like a whisper in my ear. And I trusted it blindly. And I packed up all my stuff. And 2 weeks later, I was on a plane, one-way ticket to Hawaii.
Wow.
And I land on Big Island, which is actually where I'm at right now. I'm staying at a friend's farm on the Big Island. And I sat at the volcano when I landed here because I had a dream with a woman with long white hair. And the local said it was Tutupele, the volcano goddess. And I sat at the volcano and I cried and I wept and I yelled and I screamed. And I said, what the hell am I doing here? I picked up my entire life to be here and I don't know why I'm here. And I just started hearing the guidance and I just trusted the guidance. And that was really a moment of just true surrender, that I couldn't logically understand what was happening, but there was something within me that was telling me, that was giving me permission to just keep going in the complete unknown, even in the face of all of my loved ones looking at me like, what are you thinking? What are you doing? You had it all. But in my heart, it was no longer my definition of having it all. Right. So trusting the journey of shifting from, being angry and upset and confused to really having gratitude for everything that took place, right? Because there's a lot more to the story that I've lived in this lifetime. And just having gratitude for all of it and recognizing that I had to experience all of that to get me to where I am right now. Right? To really be able to hold space for the next. Yeah.
So
to do their own work.
I mean, we both had some experimenting with variety of different modalities, teacher plants, hypnotherapy, energy healing. Mm-hmm. We've all had those experiences, all of three of us. Can you describe how those practices have helped you in your journey, and which ones did you feel were most impactful for you and why?
So the mother plant is ayahuasca. Yeah. And, Mama Aya was powerful, extremely powerful. For a very sensitive soul like myself, it was shocking. It shook me to my core, right? I've experimented with psilocybin. Psilocybin is a beautiful teacher, but nothing as Mama Aya.
It's a different level, for sure.
It's a whole totally different level, right? But the beauty of sitting with Mama Aya was that she just shows you what you need to see, not what you want to see, right? But what you really need to understand about what's taking place within you, in order to really let go and release and heal what no longer serves, right? And really give yourself permission to see the possibility that we are a multidimensional being, that we do have the capacity to really live in the realm of infinite possibility. And Mama Aya, for me, also gave me the room to be held and be loved, right? Because it's a feminine energy. For me, it felt like a grandmother energy. Like, you're having a bad day and you go home and you sit on grandma's lap and she gives you cookies, and you feel warm and fuzzy. That was.
And I think for people who haven't done ayahuasca, she's also the don't F with me mother too. So if you, she can thrash you around quite a bit right. As well.
So she's the divine feminine, right? The tough love, right? The divine feminine is just like nurturing and loving, and I'll hold you. But if you cross the line, you cross the boundary, you're gonna get it, right? That's the Colombian, right? That's the balance. Right. That also, I think a lot of us feminine have been conditioned to not fully understand. Right. So experiencing, with Mama Aya allows you to see the breadth of that. Yeah.
So what are some of the things that for our viewers that you were hanging on to that you did let go? What are some specific things? Because I know a lot of times we talk and we kind of talk in generalities, but they're like, well, okay, I got to let this go. But what specifically, what was your greatest, what was the biggest or the greatest moment that you let something go through this entire journey, not necessarily with the plant therapy?
Right. Not feeling enough. Not feeling enough. I'm a very accomplished human, in the sight of society, but I always felt not enough. I always felt like nothing I did was going to be enough. And that's something that I really feel we as a collective experience. Not feeling enough and not feeling worthy of success, right? Not feeling worthy not feeling as if abundance was my birthright, right? Not feeling as though I was allowed to just live in a life that was simple and easy and fluid, as it is now, right? And it's hard to just pinpoint one moment, because it feels like it's like the peeling away of an onion. It's layers, it's layers that we experience. And, and I don't think there's just one day, poof, we're healed and everything is wonderful, and everything just falls into place and everything's perfect. I think it's these layers that we're peeling off, and we're recognizing, oh, we have tools, and here it's going to revisit me, to give me like a little baby test, to be like, okay, how you doing now? What you got in your pocket you can pull out in order to have more consciousness to this unconscious pattern, to this unconscious wound, to this trigger, right? That is arising once again, right? What are you going to do differently this time that it arises than you did last time, right? So in a sense, I always say it's kind of like an upward spiral, right? We're going up on the spiral. We hit a peak, right? We feel great. And then the shit stirs up again, and it comes right back up to be like, hey, I'm still here. What you gonna do, right? And then you're falling down that loop, but you never fall further down than you did the last time, because you gain more wisdom, right? You peeled off a layer.
Right.
Yeah. So it's more the journey. Yeah.
So do you feel that a lot of the struggle that you were feeling prior was the pressure of societal conditioning, or was it religious conditioning, parental conditioning? Where do you feel was the greatest struggle?
Yeah. I think all of the above, right? Parental conditioning. Mom and dad were immigrants. They came over to America to give us a better life, right? We were it was very important in my lineage for us to go to college and have a degree and fulfill that degree. Societal conditioning. I was a beauty pageant queen. I was groomed to be such, right? So a lot of the work that I was involved in had a lot to do with my looks, had a lot to do with my beauty. And that for me was a huge disconnect, because I'm like, wait a minute, I got other things going on besides my beauty that I can contribute to this, right? And religious conditioning, oh yeah, without a doubt. Like there's a certain way you have to behave, there's a certain way you have to be. And for me, it was hilarious when I'd be in church and they'd tell you one thing: cross your legs, be a good girl, right? Don't speak to your spoken to. And then I go home and I turn on the television, and it's women like scantily clad, shaking their tatas, right, to get the attention of the male. And I'm just like, wait a minute, I don't understand what I'm supposed to do. So I always felt like this kind of kid that was being pulled in these different directions. So it was all the above. Yeah. And the conditioning that I really believe was placed upon us to keep us playing small, to keep us in that confusion, to keep us in that distraction, to keep us in that, oh shit, I just got to keep it together. I just got to make it through the day. I just got to pay the bills. I just have to, do the bare minimum so I can just survive, to stay in that survival, and not recognize that we're here to actually thrive, in this life.
Yeah. So it's kind of the difference between I have to and I want to.
Oh yeah. Huge, right? I always say we have to stop masturbating on ourselves. I must do this. right? We have to stop shoulding on ourselves. I should do this, right? Instead of what I desire to. What feels delicious? You know, what makes me feel good inside? What gives me permission to feel in my fullness? Yeah.
So the work that you were doing for the corporate environment, what exactly was that?
I worked in entertainment and also in the nonprofit sector with corporate. I was in bed with corporate when I worked in the nonprofit sector, I say. So the entertainment industry, and I was also in TV. I was a newscaster for some time in New York City. So I saw a lot of what took place behind the scenes, you know, with regards to the agenda that was being imposed upon us, you know, through television and through entertainment. I saw a lot of things behind the curtain that at the time I thought I was playing out of my head. I thought I was something that I was, you know, because I was crazy. I felt crazy making up. And now I'm realizing, well, I realized it's about 10 years ago that no, there's an agenda. There was something that was being pushed to really help mold society a certain way in order to keep them playing small, to keep them kind of like in a box.
Can you define that agenda a little bit more?
Yeah, sure, of course. So I really believe what's been pushed on us is, you know, that there's a certain way you have to be and there are certain things you have to do. There's a certain these expressions we have, like the sky's the limit. You know, there's a glass ceiling, right? These words that we have, you know, these spells, right? Spelling words, these spells that are put upon us that keep us hypnotized, for lack of a better term, right? To just have this tunnel vision that things have to be done a certain way. And if you fall off, right? If you fall out of the box, if you fall off the line, you're kind of going to be pushed back in order to just keep it moving, in order to keep the society, keep certain people's pockets fat, right? Keep certain people's agendas in place of power and control and greed. And if you keep the masses comfortable, right? If you keep the masses distracted and you keep the masses just, again, in survival mode, you know, that hamster wheel, just keep doing the same thing over and over and over again. Like, I think we're conditioned to understand that doing something that out of the box, you know, you'll get some sort of punishment from it. And it's something that we have within ourselves that keeps us, again, playing small, right? I refer to playing small a lot because I look back at my experience where I had a plethora of opportunities that I didn't allow myself to step into because who am I to actually have had those opportunities? Who am I to, you know, these opportunities that were given to me would have made life so simple, so easy. But, you know, I believe we're conditioned that if you don't work hard, right? If you don't do things a certain way, then you didn't earn it correctly, right? So I think these agendas are being exposed now. You know, like when I first woke up to all of this back in 2010, people were talking about it on YouTube, but their faces were covered, their voices were muffled. There was a lot of fear of persecution. And I was having a lot of dreams of what was to come down the pipes. You know, like I dreamed back in 2012 what was coming in 2020. And I was that woman at the rooftop, like, everybody, oh my God, this is what's happening. This is what's coming. We got to prepare. We got to. Like I just solidified, right, my crazy status doing that. But when COVID hit, for me, it was like a sense of relief, because for me, it was just like a confirmation, like, oh, I'm predicting these things. These are things that are coming to me in order for me to have an understanding. And for those that are ready and willing to surrender to the process of recognizing and understanding that there is an agenda, we have been duped. I like using that word. We've been duped. We've been duped to believe that life has to be a certain way. We've been duped to not understand that we can have it all if we desire to. We can choose the possibility that we would like to create in our reality. We are the creators of our reality. We don't have to live by circumstance.
Yeah, we talk often about the infinity matrix. So for us, the matrix is the external environment, and then there's the internal environment. And so it's the correlation between the two that creates your reality, right? And so often people are not aware of, or maybe they don't put attention on the idea that so much of what's out there has been placed there by other people, and we take on their meanings and their definitions, and we take that on as that's true, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so by having this experience where you could kind of really kind of lift the veils, if you will, and say that, oh, well, no, I can make my own choice on what that means or what that doesn't mean, and move from there. I think that's a really, really special experience for you to have. And we kind of support our audience with that in a variety of different ways, which is kind of out of the box thinking, and beyond the box is really what we want to think. So as a medicine woman, and an intuitive empath, talk about what those are first of all, and from that place, what advice would you have for people who are struggling with being in, what Stuart Wald would call TikTok, right? How can they start to build up their confidence to kind of at least explore the boundaries, if not get out of it?
Yeah, great question. Thank you. So I believe we're all intuitive in some way, shape, or form, right? I believe we naturally have these abilities. We have these natural abilities, right? To receive the guidance of doing something that is actually in alignment for you, but the conditioned mind doesn't give you permission to believe, right? That that's your truth. So first and foremost is let's pay attention to what we're consuming, right? Like I really believe what you consume consumes you, from what you're watching to what you're listening to what you're eating, to what you're drinking, right? To the activities you're partaking in, to the conversations that you're having.
Right.
I really believe that, when we're asleep, right, versus awake, right? I believe we are awakening, right? When we're asleep, like you mentioned before, it's like we're very easy to just take in whatever's being fed to us, right? So our food source is compromised. Okay, that's the reality that we're facing right now. Our air is being compromised. What happened recently in Palestine, Ohio is going to give us a big shocker. I had some downloads just the other day of what's coming down the pipeline with that. So when we're aware of what we're consuming, what we're nourishing our vehicle with, our body with, right? Because if our body is out of whack, right? If our nervous system is out of whack, then there's no room, right, for us to be able to be in a space of peace in order to recognize the alignment, right? So what we consume, very much, get into nature. Like I grew up in New York City, so I didn't understand what that was. I'm like, oh yeah, I'm in Central Park. I said, well, I have my lunch on it, but my face in the sun, right? Like if that's all you got, that's all you got. That's okay. But really giving yourself permission to just bask in the natural cycle of life, which is nature, right? Like the trees speak to us, the animals speak to us, the air speaks to us. Like that's one of the roles that I play being a medicine woman, like a medicine woman, a witch, a woman, that's just a woman who's in her power. That's a woman who's really surrendered, right, to her own divine gifts of these subtleties that we're so conditioned to not trust, right? And these subtleties can be very much trained while sitting in nature, while doing something that is so detrimental and painful as just being in your silence. It's like such a painful thing for us humans to do, right? Because we've been taught to be so distracted, right? If the mind is going too much, open up the Instagram, open up, the TV, distract yourself with something so you don't think about all these thoughts that are coming through your mind. And when you really sit down with your silence, you start recognizing that all these things that are cluttering your mind are just thoughts. They're just doing what the mind is meant to do. The mind is meant to think. That's its job. You can't just shut it down, right? I really believe meditation is not quieting the mind. I believe meditation is watching the mind, is really learning how to become a detached observer to the mind. Like, wow, fascinating. Look what my mind is stirring up right now. Bringing up that trauma that happened to me back when I was 6, 7, 8 years old. It's still coming up, right? So if it's coming up for a reason. It needs air. Right? We have to feel things to heal things. We have to give ourselves permission to just give it the love that it needs. Like, I really believe those impending doom thoughts is just our inner child saying, hey, give me some attention, give me some love. The attention that I didn't get from my unconscious parents, not their fault. They did their best. If we're conditioned, imagine that generation and the generation before that, right? Right. So it's really giving yourself permission to be in your silence, right? And to be in your thoughts, right? To learn different ways to just rest, take it easy. Your body's tired, take a nap. Like, why are we fighting ourselves and like doping ourselves up and like drinking more caffeine, to keep it moving, keep awake? I got to do this. I have to do this. I must do this. Do you really? Like, I love how a lot of these companies now are understanding the importance of like having napping rooms, and understanding the importance of giving people 20 minutes, in order to just go outside and take a breath of fresh air. Like, these little microscopic shifts and changes, right, are what allow us to really surrender, to learning how to trust the guidance of the divine. Like, for me, it was harsh. My awakening was brutal, right? But that was just my path, right? So I work with a lot of folks who it doesn't have to be.
But you needed something that intense to get you out of New York to make that huge of a shift, right?
Yeah.
Absolutely, because I was one stubborn woman. Because I was being told over and over and over again in life. I had a lot of clashes in life that it was just like, wake up, wake up, wake up. And I'm like, I'm not ready yet. No, I'm going to take another nap. Yeah.
Yeah. We're a firm believer that, the universe is constantly giving us these messages and these signs. And it's like, either you listen to me now or I'll make you listen.
Yeah. I'll shake you at your core.
And
it is.
Whether it be in your spiritual life, your mental life, your physical life, the signs are there and the synchronicities are in place, and they're going to keep on and keep on until we finally just like, oh, you were right.
Yeah, they'll get louder, they'll get stronger, they'll get more intense, they'll get more obvious. It's
and that's what I call illness, disease, dis-ease, lack of ease. When I have clients that come to me with a cancer, it's like, okay, let's go back. Let's go back to all those times universe was speaking to you, and the universe has to bring you a cancer. So you can actually force yourself to sit down. And this is where the conditioning comes in, right? Like, so let's take it a step further. Like, cancer is becoming it's becoming a chronic condition, becoming a chronic disease. It's becoming normal, right? There's this, I believe, this very like sinister underground message of like making cancer normal, normalizing cancer, right? We hold these fundraisers now to get people, their medications, and it's becoming a normal thing to not allow the person to understand that they are actually the ones in control of it coming to them in the first place. Right. That's a big conversation that we need to have. And, whether the masses are ready to hear it or not. Yeah. But, it's like recognizing that everything we're experiencing, we brought it upon ourselves.
Yeah.
From what we've been doing or not been doing. Yeah. Yeah. That's a big one, right? It's like, oh my God, I did
Well,
this.
and I think that, it's a huge topic for sure. I think that there's also with the normalizing of something like cancer, there's almost, for a segment of the population, there's almost an acceptance of it and a expectation of it. Well, there's a good chance I'm going to get it, right? So it's like they've kind of surrendered to that probability or possibility.
Yeah. So then talk about really calling it in by saying, well, my mother had breast cancer, so it's going to happen to me
I know.
anyways.
It's
Right?
crazy. It's crazy.
When we know scientifically that genetically that's not the scenario. It's there's so many other variables that come into play, but people still play that game, right?
Because that's what they've kind of told the masses. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like it's just things are beginning to kind of shift in these conversations, and due to social media, I believe, due to the internet being in place, that we have other sources of information, right? Not just 2, 4, 5, 7, 9, 11, the basic channels. I always say the mainstream channels that just have one agenda. Like if you ever watch like all the different channels of news, they all have the same story.
Oh yeah, 100%. Yeah.
All the same company.
It's all the same company.
Okay.
Ta-da! Yeah, exactly.
So, but what I work with a lot of, younger generation. I want to say adults, but that's sometimes questionable. It really comes down to, letting other people understand that, listen, there are a number of different sources and resources that you can use. It's not just that one. Right. And you need to expand. If you hear a story, Gary and I say this all the time, it's like, you hear a story, great, now go look and find other resources and see if you can confirm that story, or if that's just simply somebody's opinion. And because if that's their opinion, and they have that expectation of cancer, let's use this as an example, they have that expectation, now it becomes your expectation. It's the same thing as what we learn generational from our parents or grandparents and great grandparents, that just these belief systems get handed down, or passed along, and we don't, in many cases, question that information. It's like, oh well, this is the way it is.
Yeah.
So my mom died at 60 years old, so that means I'm going to die at 60 years old? Hell no. And it's just like, so it's my responsibility as an individual to find the resources and either confirm or just say, no, I don't accept that reality. Yeah. And I intend on changing that reality for myself.
Yeah. Beautiful. And taking it a step further, it's like what I focus on with my clientele is helping them learn how to trust their own guidance.
Absolutely.
Right. Right. I call it trust your dopeness. Right? Like we've forgotten how dope we are. We've forgotten like how magical we are. We've forgotten that actually all the answers are within. Right? That we've been conditioned, we've been taught to go outside. Ask the teacher, ask the priest, ask the politician, right? Ask the doctor.
Exactly.
Right? So it's like, when we're bringing these two conversations together, it's like learning to really surrender and trust your intuition, your guidance, and then also say, that is not the reality I choose. You're golden. Right there, you're golden, right? That's the superhuman capacity that we all have, privy to. We're just not aware. And it's quite fascinating for us here at this table, right? And everyone that's listening in, it's like we're speaking a totally different, we're recreating the language. We're remembering what the language used to be before we were conditioned to have the language we have right now. So there is also a lot of kickback in the belief systems that we're following, right? From those that we love and those that we perhaps desire to want to wake up to this, right? That's been one of the biggest challenges for me as an empath, as a Pisces, as a true sensitive. I'm just here to love. That's my only goal here on this planet, right?
Yeah.
So one of the biggest challenges for me is like recognizing how everybody's got their own path, their own journey, their own choices. They got to do it the way they got to do it. But those that are ready to listen and surrender to this ideology, great, game on, let's play. You know,
and giving them permission to listen to that.
Yeah.
Because as you said,
that's a big one.
Outside for the authority, for the permission, like, can I do this? Like, well, of course you can. But I find it extraordinary when people are shocked and you say, well, you just did. Of course you can. It's what you want. It's you. It's you as an individual, your body, your mind, your belief system. You can do anything you want with those. And many people, I'm sure you've experienced the same thing, are like, I can? Because of that connection. It's like, no, but you have to go to this building, this source for him to give you the guidance. That's if he says you can't, or she, then you cannot. I think that's where you were probably the frustration you had in your recovering Catholic life. It's just like
absolutely right. It's like that whole like not feeling worthy, like not feeling enough. But what is my mom going to think? How's my mom going to feel? Correct. You know, like what's my dad going to say? You know, like what is my whole lineage is depending on me to create this type of life. And if I don't, I'm going to disappoint them. Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah.
So how did it work when you took that belief structure and with that you grew up with basically and brought it into the corporate realm, into that the world of corporate life? Tell us about that.
Well, I'd say it's KISS. Keep it simple, right? Keep it simple, silly, right? It's breadcrumbs. I've learned something that we have to just give breadcrumbs to folks. There are some deep divers from the get, that find me and they're just like, I've had this experience and I'm just ready to, put everything to the side and just focus on this. But there are some other people that this is just one of the many arms that they have to work with in life. So it's meeting them where they're at, and then going back to the basics, grounding, going into nature, recognizing what you're consuming, resting. Like that's something that is so imperative. Like if our nervous systems are out of whack, there's no way we're going to be able to integrate any of this information that's coming through because we're going to be in constant survival mode. We're going to be in constant fight or flight, right? And just really helping them see the possibility, right? Really helping them see that there is another way, right? And my work, I'm an energy healer. I'm as a divine oracle, I receive activation codes and healing codes that it's really hard to put into words, what it is that comes through. But because I'm so surrendered to the process, as I'm interacting with somebody, I'm a vessel. I'm the channel that's receiving the guidance, that individual needs or that group needs that's in front of me. I don't question what comes through. I just surrender to what is meant to come through because I'm here to work for the highest good of all, right? And that also goes in line with me living my life in integrity and me living my life in accordance to what it is to be for the highest good of self. Because if my vessel is not, in a state of alignment, the information is not going to come through that's needed for those that are receiving. So it's really just surrendering to the unknown, like helping someone understand that your logical mind is not going to understand this. it may, and having that blind face, right? That this person that's in front of you, that's having this conversation with you, is not, it's not a random, everything happens for a reason, right? That's something that has been put into our societal language that we understand, right? And just trusting. Yeah.
Do you interact with any of the people you used to work with in the corporate world? Are you still in contact with a lot of them?
Yeah.
Do they think you're crazy?
Well, I left New
Crazier?
York. Totally. I left New York. I was like, peace out. I'm out. When I left New York back in 2015, I was like, I'm out. And I was like, I got off Facebook. I cut myself off. And I, for like 6 to 8 months, I was living in the jungle. And it's literally this year, right? End of last year, this year, where people just started coming out of the woodworks. Right? I came back on a couple of years after, and my Instagram and Facebook, and I'm very open to to speak about this information.
Sure.
And people are coming back that actually did call me crazy to my face several years ago. You're nuts. What are you thinking? And now they're like, oh shit, I'm sorry. I'm beginning to see things now. Like what you said back then is beginning to make sense. You know. And it was them coming to that understanding, not me reminding them, not me telling them this is the path, right? It was just me kind of staying in my lane, doing what I needed to do, and then them being the listeners. I noticed I have a lot of listeners, on my social media channels, right, that are not necessarily communicating, right? Not necessarily commenting or anything. And that's okay, right? It's whatever pace they want to take it at. But yes, there are people that are coming from the woodworks now, coming out. Yeah.
So, because I know when I left the corporate world, and I was just completely burned out, and physically, and but the question that I got from a lot of people is, well, how come you didn't come back? And I'm like, well, because my burnout was a sign. That was it was something that was being told to me. And as I said, is that finally I wasn't listening, and I was just shut down. The university shut me down, just like, you need to listen. And I had that. Your story resonated with me because I had that same feeling of, here I am, I'm doing very, very well, but I simply feel empty. I don't feel that I'm contributing to the planet, to the universe, like I feel I was meant to do. And lo and behold, that's when Gary and I, connected. And in our story is that we had been connecting in a roundabout way for years prior to our actual connection. And it just, like what you just said, it just wasn't time. And then I was in a place, he was in a place, and we just kind of connected up. And this was 13 years ago. And it's just like, okay, well, this was meant to be. And but still going back to when I still interact with some of the people that I worked with back then, they're just like, well, you just burned out. That's all it was. I'm like, no, and it's that belief system of, you'll get there, like what your friends are saying to you, is that you'll get there. Eventually you're going to understand what I realized, back in you realized back in 2015, what I realized back in 2005. It's just like, you're going to get there eventually. And it's not burnout, it's a message.
And I think it's energetically, it's like the soul has this, it's almost like a fight or flight type thing. But I say to you, get to a point where life throws all these things, and we lost her.
Yeah. Go ahead and continue. She'll pop back on.
So I think it's more of, the soul has all these experiences where it gets, it builds up some tolerance and, some things that it's okay with, but it gets to a point where that line in the sand is drawn, right? It's like, okay, I'm either it's either the fight or flight, but then there's another option, which is because the fight would be going against the system now, or the flight would be I'm going to avoid it all and kind of recluse and that. But then there's the what I believe has happened with us, including Melissa's story, is there's the fight, the flight, and then there's the inspired, right?
Yeah,
So
very good.
we become inspired from it. Right. So that's the third action that comes from the soul, is instead of just being fight or flight from the circumstance or what's going on, we get to this place where we have a choice of these things. And in the inspired, that's where, we talk to our crowd all the time about the choice convergence point. You get to this point where you realize, oh, there's so many other options.
So many.
Right. And so then we're inspired, right? And and even if you break down the word spired, right? So spired is it's the pyramidical top of something, right? So you're it's the word stems from the top of a church, right? So it's this spire, right? So it's being inspired. So we're in that place where we're ready to expand out, to reach for greater than what we thought we were before, right? So yeah, hopefully she can get back on here.
I hope
I know
so.
sometimes she has some connection issues out in Hawaii there.
Well,
Tough
we could see that
life.
she was kind of going in and out on her connection.
Yeah.
Throughout the interview. So it's one of the I don't want to say one of the drawbacks or one of the benefits of living life on an island. It's like, okay,
Yeah.
But I think her story in itself though is a wonderful story. She back? You got her?
Yep.
There she is.
We got you back. Hey, we
about
got
that,
you
my
back.
loves. Sorry about that.
Oh, that's okay. We were just talking about technology. It's great when it works.
I lost you at right when you started speaking, Gary, about it's just like a sense, at the right word.
Yeah. So what I was saying was that from the spirit level, we have these experiences in our life where they build up this momentum to a place where we get to where we say we're going to draw a line in the sand. It's either we're going to do this or we're not going to do this. So it's almost like a fight or flight experience for the soul, but instead of just the limitation of fight or flight, because the fight part of it is I'm going to fight against the system and I'm going to stick here, I'm going to make my way, I'm going to make my point, and that's the fight, right? The flight is I'm going to avoid this stuff and I'm done and recluse. but then there's place where I think that a lot more people are getting to. It's not because we talk about this all the time. It's not a this or that mentality. It's a this and that and that and that. So what happens is we come to awareness of the part of us that wants to fight and create results and transformation. We become aware of ourselves that want to empower ourselves and be detached from the traps that are out there. And when we become aware of those things and accepting of those things instead of a this or that, when we become accepting of them, it creates an opportunity for us to get into, instead of fight or flight, we come to a place of emerging, right? Of inspired. So we become inspired instead of fight or flight in our actions. Right. And that's what happened for you. So you needed to distance yourself from New York to be in this place where you could then reground, recalibrate, and then become inspired by who you are and what you're here to bring. Right. And I think more and more people are in that place.
Absolutely.
Absolutely. Yeah.
And there's the knowledge is out there. Yeah, the knowledge is out there now that people are like, oh, they're, like yourself. This is why it was so important for us to have you on the show, is because people are like, oh, I'm not alone. And then in your story itself gives people permission to say, I don't have to live like this.
Yeah.
Like, no, you don't.
No, I have a choice.
Like one of our teachers says, we all need different permission slips on what we're going to, for when we're ready to make a transformation, right? And permission slips come in all shapes, sizes, colors, and forms.
And timings.
Yeah. It's so true.
Yeah.
It's so true. I love that. I love that. And it's and it goes back to just really understanding how everybody has their own path, their own journey, and their own timeline. Right. And
Well, yeah,
respecting
and I
that,
think again,
you know, and
spiritually, right? I think we've, as a planet, we've done, if you look at our history, right? We've done a lot of initially, we did a lot of the flight stuff, right? The get out of there, the run, I'm gone. We did a lot of fight stuff too. We did a lot of that, right? So we've explored those dimensions, right? We've explored them to a point where we're now saying, okay, we fully understand the fight and the flight aspects. And some places of the world are still playing that out. But I think because of that, collectively, we're starting to see more and more of hey, there's got to be more, right? And when you have experiences on Mother Ayahuasca, and I've had a few with psilocybin too, where that you see that, wow, okay, there is other dimensions that are so accessible if we only allowed ourselves to be open to it.
Yeah.
We give ourselves permission.
Yeah,
absolutely.
Right? Yeah.
No, I love that explanation. Yeah, because it's when COVID hit and there was just droves of people that were leaving the planet, right? I come from the deep understanding that we call this planet Earth school. We come here to have these experiences, right, and to really live out reconcile our karma, for lack of a better term, right? And there's going to be more droves of people that are going to be leaving the planet because they're just not going to choose, in order to come to this understanding of emerging. And that's okay, right? That's okay. That's their choice, right? That's their God-given choice, to choose what path they want to choose. So I feel really grateful, that I gave myself permission to emerge, right, and to surrender to this work, because life now feels so incredibly purposeful than it ever has before.
That's fantastic.
Yeah,
that is great. So we're coming up on the end of our hour. Tell our listeners how they can get a hold of you, maybe some of your programs, what you offer them, so that they can learn like you've lived.
So
I've already dropped your link in the chat. So
thanks, my love. Yeah. So I'm being led off island to Egypt. I'm being called, to do work in Egypt. I've been having these really divine dreams of dancing nude in the temples of Isis, and being the divine oracle, to bring forth and give permission to the next person to wake up to their own power. Nice. And then I'm also hearing Algeria and Israel and Costa Rica. Like the nuggets are just kind of like coming in, and that's kind of how I live my life now. I just let myself be led to where I need to go next, or where I'm needed next, per se. My work is individualized, so anybody that wants to have a conversation with me may, over Zoom. I do a complimentary consult to anyone that just feels pulled, to have a conversation with me, because everyone's got their own individual space of where they're at, right? So whether we move forward working together or not, that's okay. We have a conversation to give you some guidance to where you are, I'm looking to produce a online membership called You Are Awakening, to talk about the very basic tools that we can take on, right, to people that are just waking up to this conversation, who may feel very alone, right? Because we usually wake up first in our families, per se, right, kind of thing. So, and I'm producing right now something called Fierce Femme Flow for our women out there that really want to tap into their divine feminine, which is the nurturing, loving, woman. But at the same time, you cross the boundary, right? You will receive that tough love, like really understanding how to master the masculine and the feminine energies within. I also work with couples as well, in helping them really hone in on their own divine union, right? We have roles in our relationships. We come together in union in order to be able to have the opportunity to heal. Many times we don't know that. We're unconscious to it. So it becomes conflict, and that's okay. That was part of that journey, right? But for those couples that come together and understand that they want to give themselves permission to thrive as a couple, then I do work with them to help them understand their own individual limited beliefs and how they can actually work together, right, to hold space for each other in that journey of healing and expansion. And then the work I do with men is really helping them tap into their own divine feminine, right? Men carry a divine feminine energy that has been poo-pooed. I think society has demasculated our men, right? So I really hold space for my men to help them understand how that sensitivity they have within is actually their superpower, right? And how really surrendering to their own inner guidance will help them thrive in whatever area of life they desire to do so. So I'm quite vast. I don't really have like one certain niche. I guess my niche is just, you're waking up, great, right? You want to step into your power? Great, let's do this, right? And we just let things unravel, as they need to. So the complimentary consult, of course, goes to everybody.
That's great. Well, I think the greatest message here is that, we have a lot of listeners, a lot of our clients who are in the corporate world and who struggle with this feeling, the same feeling that you have. And I think the message here is that, hey, listen, everybody, you're not crazy. Society is pushing you to think that way, has conditioned you to think that way, but you're not crazy. Let it go. And let those, and don't let society, hit you with all those insecurities. Don't, it's just let it go. Let it go. You can find a way. There's always another way.
I always say you're not going crazy. You're just waking up.
Yeah. Exactly.
Right. And it's been labeled as crazy in order for us to not give ourselves permission to wake up to the power that lives within. Right. Beautiful. So it's, Thank you, gentlemen.
Gary, any last words?
No, it's awesome. And those of you can also catch both Melissa and us on Expansion Alchemy. We're on another network where we co-collaborate with a bunch of other teachers and share our learnings and teachings and gifts there as well. So make sure you check that out. We drop the links all the time in our posts. And so thanks for joining us and being here and sharing your story, which was awesome, and your wisdom. Really appreciate it and look forward to connecting up more with you.
Thank you, my loves. Thank you so much for this opportunity.
We'll post
I look forward to hearing about your journey too.
If you couldn't finish watching this today, we are on YouTube. We have our YouTube channel, which is at Infinity Matrix. And that will take you to all of our interviews and also all of our trainings. And we'll put all of Melissa's information in the discussion on that page as well. And that's about all we have today. So thank you, everyone, for joining us. Melissa, thank you so much.
Aloha, everybody.
So you can pass it on to.
Aloha.
Beautiful. Thank you very much. Bye-bye.
Aloha.
Bye-bye.
Bye, love.
Well, you made it to the end of this interview, and that tells us one thing. You liked what you heard. And maybe, just maybe, you might want more of the same. So be sure to hit subscribe and ring that bell. As a matter of fact, you might be ready to step things up for yourself. You see, everyone that you've heard us interview for the Infinite Wisdom series all have one thing in common. They've harnessed their own potential, claimed their badass self, and raised their game and leveled up. Whether it be in business, personal, romantic, for whatever aspect of life you choose, there's always a next level. So we encourage you to rekindle your passion and purpose, step it up, and register for our next free 5-day Badass Challenge. The link is below, and we are excited to see you take a leap into a new reality that only you can imagine.